Well, we now continue our interviews with Dunedin's mayoral candidates, and this evening we're talking to Lee Vandervis. Good evening.
Good evening.
How long have you lived in Dunedin?
Lived in Dunedin probably 40 out of 61 years.
Oh wow. Why are you running for the mayoralty?
Because I believe Dunedin needs a better mayor, someone who really understands A, how to make the infrastructure work, and B, how to promote what really is an enormous potential that Dunedin has.
What leadership experience can you bring to the table?
30 years of being a team leader in business in the real world. I used to be the production manager for 2 different companies in the UK in my 20s, and I've run businesses since then in Dunedin. I know how to make a dollar, I know how to provide service, and I know how to get the best out of employees. And I've done very well doing it. Dunedin's been kind to me. In 2004 I basically retired to become a city councillor, and it's been fairly rough 9 years on council, but yeah, it's, I think, been worthwhile.
What do you think are the 2 top issues facing this city?
Infrastructure in the first place. I mean, a city that doesn't have workable drains and has the whole of South Dunedin relying on one screen is not a city that anyone can have confidence in. To get confidence, especially in South Dunedin, we need to ensure that the drainage is properly up to scratch. The screen that blocked caused the extra 8 inches of flooding is what did virtually all the damage to the homes in South Dunedin. There was a second pump that wasn't even switched on because we didn't have regional council permission, apparently. All these basic infrastructural things desperately need looking at. I have the answers to all of them. They're not hard. They just need someone who understands nuts and bolts of how things work.
And the second issue? The
second issue really is the direction for the city. The current mayor seems to think that Cycleways is going to, in a hilly city with fairly inclement weather, is going to be what brings the kind of people we want here. I don't believe that's the case. I certainly support the Harbourside Cycleway, that's got a lot of value, but mixing cycles and heavy traffic up the one-way street system, quite frankly, is madness, and we need to stop it. We need to first spend that kind of money on drainage. Once we guarantee flood-free homes in South Dunedin, property values there will rise significantly. We'll be able to get more rates from that area. We'll be able to reinvest them in what is, after all, the largest, flat, well-serviced for infrastructure, except for drainage, area in Dunedin. South Dunedin has enormous potential. It has been ignored, it has been sidelined. They let Hillside go. They've lost Carisbrook, obviously. Tremendous opportunities, even with the stadium, to do something with Carisbrook. It was given away for $3 million in the end, and still a wasteland.
What do you think are the core functions of the Dunedin City Council?
Core functions are keeping the roads, the drains, the water, the sewage, all that kind of thing working. That's an absolute must. That's your nuts and bolts. But then there's a whole other area of actually facilitating, coordinating and promoting what the city has to sell to the rest of the world. And in that, Dunedin has had several kind of attempts which have been pretty amateur, really, not very effective.
So how would you say then that the current council is performing?
Or sort of B minus, really, you know, and B minus for a city with so many brilliant people in it. We have so many talented people. I'm not just talking about, you know, the brilliant people at the university. I'm talking about people with artistic skills. I'm talking about people with engineering skills. South Dunedin's full of them. Some of them are working in scrapyards because there's no engineering work for them to do. We really have an enormous potential that needs to be developed. We've got enormous port potential here. We've got the best natural harbour in the South Island. We should be the #1 port in the South Island. But as long as the ORC and the DCC kind of don't really get on, we aren't going to develop that potential. Tauronga's done it with an inland port. Invercargill's doing it with an inland port now. Dunedin really needs to. The first thing I will do as mayor is I'll be going around to see Bodecker at the regional council and saying, come on, let's get together, let's get common billing, let's get common back services, let's use the same computer programs, let's save the ratepayers a whole heap of money, and let's develop the port and let's develop the harbour side as a secondary thing.
What else would you do differently if you were mayor?
I would be very careful to make sure that all the paperwork that arrived in front of councillors was balanced and relevant, because currently most of it is pre-cooked. I would not have any agenda of my own. I wouldn't have any green agenda or right-wing or left-wing agenda at all. I would simply work very hard to ensure that staff produce reports that give you all the information you need to make a proper informed decision. That hasn't been happening, and it needs to if we are to make, the new council is to make good decisions. If you let people know what's going on and you don't hide information from them, it's amazing how even ordinary people on the street can actually see what needs to be done. When I asked, for instance, under Lagoima for some information on what the faults were with the town hall redevelopment, they refused to give them to me. And I had to go to the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman took 11 months to give them to me, and I finally figured out why I couldn't get the information. The faults sheet for that redevelopment, there were over 1,600 faults in that redevelopment. And obviously they just want it buried. That kind of stuff shouldn't be buried, because it just means it'll carry on to the next project. You don't fix things unless A, you acknowledge them, and B, take steps to make sure that better information is provided next time round.
What do you think is the most important function of the mayor?
I think putting good information in front of councillors and getting the confidence of councillors that you are impartial and that you will give them all the respect that they deserve, because so many thousand people will have voted for each one of them. There is a lot more to the mayoral role, though. To say just one thing's most important is difficult. As a figurehead for the city, as somebody who actually gets up there and says, look, our city can do this. You've seen Tim Shadbolt do it in Invercargill, famously. I'm no Tim Shadbolt, but I believe I have some of the pizzazz that will allow us to show Dunedin in more of its wonderful, eclectic light.
Do you have the skills to lead the council?
I certainly do. I have 9 fairly tough years actually, of having been a councillor. I have a very good knowledge of the Local Government Act, which is very important for a mayor. Very good knowledge of standing orders. I've had to learn standing orders very well because I've been subject to them from time to time, you understand. But more than that, I have a real feel for what it is that we have in this city that is special. I get very good feedback by visiting the lunchrooms and smoko rooms of a lot of businesses around the town, and I believe that from the feedback I get there, that I can represent Dunedin in a way that most people will actually be very appreciative of.
Where do you think Dunedin's future lies?
It lies in a quality of life, and our current mayor recognises that as well. He said so today. When you have a really good quality of life, when you get the drain sorted, a few other things like that, but in addition to that, we have so many other wonders here. We have fantastic wildlife, we have wonderful nature, our built environment is wonderful. What happened in Vogel Street, some people have tried to take credit for, but actually what happened in Vogel Street was because someone was clever enough in the DCC to get the planning department to look the other way, while individuals, wonderful developers in Dunedin, were able to develop that area when they weren't supposed to, because the plan didn't allow actually what they were doing. So we need to get out of the way. The second generation plan is going to hobble business and hobble all kinds of activity here unless we do something about it. Currently, it's an extremely awkward document. It has things in it like you're not allowed to build anything in South Dunedin unless it's relocatable. How do you build a tilt slab commercial building that is relocatable? It's basically a death knell for the biggest flat area in Dunedin. We've got to revisit it. A number of our strategies are also, quite frankly, just ideological messes. They need to be revisited in a practical way and in a way that allows business to get up and do what it wants to do. Currently, a lot of businesses just have to go south. I mean, our own business, when we set up a wood processing mill, we couldn't do it in our own area because our planning permission just wasn't going to allow that to happen. They had to put it down in Milton. This sort of thing has been going on for far too long. I know of a business not that long ago, a $60 million investment went south when they would have preferred to do it here because they were Dunedin boys to begin with.
Dunedin City Council mayoral candidate Lee Vandervis, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.